Good day, I'm Cesar, and my topic for today is about
Algae. We're gonna talk about what are algae. More specifically, how would we define them? How many types are there, and are they good or bad? So, in general, algae are a very diverse group of organisms. They span from single-celled planktonic small organisms. You have to use a microscope to see the large ocean kelps that can be 300 feet long. The definition of algae is quite a broad term. In general, it means organisms with no true roots, stems, or leaves, and organisms that are mostly photoautotropic. This means they acquire their energy from the sun through use of photosynthetic pigments. Now, chlorophyll A is a common photosynthetic pigment. These appear green in color. It reflects green, that's what we see a lot in leaves and in grass around. However, there's many other pigments that could appear red or brown or orange that other types of algae have. This can be a diagnostic in identifying them. So, there are over 30,000 species of described algae. Algae that are known to humans, but in theory, there could be hundreds of thousands or millions of yet undescribed types of algae. And this span many different kingdoms of classification. The green algae or the plant-like microalgae, they're grouped in the same kingdom as plants, as land plants, or aquatic microphytes that you see with the true roots, stems, and leaves, although the algae don't have them. However, there are algae that are bacteria. The photosynthetic cyanobacteria are actually in the kingdom bacteria. Some types of algae are good for a system. They are healthy, they move up the food chain, invertebrates like to eat them, and then they can move up the food chain and grow big fast, for example. These algae can also produce oxygen during the day during sunlight through the photosynthesis process. However, there are some types of algae that are not good to have. They're not easily eaten. Big, thick mats or scums that don't move the food chain. Some algae can also produce toxins. Overall, today, we'll look at the broad definition of algae, how many types there are, and whether or not they're good or bad. Protozoa. Protozoa are unicellular or one cell or single cell. They are eukaryotic organism or microorganism. They cannot produce their own food. They eat soil bacteria and eat other microorganisms. They have no cell wall. Protozoa literally means proto, primitive, and zoa means animals. According to study, it is one of the oldest microorganisms. Protozoa not belong to Animalia but in Protist. There are many kinds of protozoa. There are some protozoa that can cause disease to animals and for the human as well. Example of this is the Plasmodium. Plasmodium is a protozoa that can cause malaria. Alam natin na ang malaria ay galing sa lamok. Pero ang lamok, hindi siya yung cause ng malaria, but the protozoa na ang pangalan ay Plasmodium. Bali, ang lamok lang ang carrier ng malaria at hindi siya yung nagkakos ng malaria. Nagsimula ang Plasmodium sa mga hayop na sinisipsipan ng mga lamok, tapos transfer yun sa tao na nakakagat ng lamok. At for example, Isang lamok na may malaria ay kinagat niya yung isang tao. Tapos, after nun, may isang lamok naman na walang malaria pero kinagat niya yung tao na na-infect na malaria. Bale na dala niya na yung dugo ng infected na tao ng malaria at nasupsop niya yon. So, bale, pag masinipsipan naman yung sumipsip ng dugo sa carrier ng malaria, pag kagat naman niya sa ibang tao, magkakaroon din ng malaria yung nakagat niya. Another example of protozoa is trichomoniasis. It is a very common sexually transmitted disease or also known as the STD. It is caused by infection with a protozoan parasite called Trichomonas vaginalis, and it's curable. Introduction of classification of protozoa. Protozoa composed of more than 65,000 species, and they all belong to protists. Many kinds of protozoa are called symbiont. Symbiont means organism living in symbiosis. Symbiosis means the relationship between two different land of living things that are live together and depend on each other. Some protozoan species are parasites. For example, worm, lice, and some are predators. They eat bacteria and algae. Protozoa has been divided into 4 types based on their movement or locomotion, how they travel from one place to another. The 4 major groups of protozoa. First is the amoeboid protozoans or protozoans, also known as amoeba. These organisms live in fresh water, seawater, or moist soil. They move and capture their prey by putting out pseudopodia or false feet. They have the ability to change shape. Second is the flagellated protozoans. The members of this group are either free-living or parasitic. They have flagella. They live or stay in the intestine or blood of the host. The parasitic form cause diseases such as sleeping sickness. Ciliated protozoans or ciliates. They are aquatic individuals that form a large group of protozoa. Their characteristic features are the presence of numerous cilia or hair-like organelle on the entire body surface that they use for swimming, crawling, attachment, feeding. Most ciliate cannot produce their own food. Instead, they eat organisms like bacteria and algae. And last but not the least, the sporozoans. They include disease-causing endoparasites and other pathogens. Endoparasites is a parasite that live in the internal organ or tissue. Sporozoan is non-motile. They cannot move by their own, and they are unicellular protists, usually parasite-caused malaria. Plasmodium belong to sporozoan. Sporozoan are also known as intracellular parasite. Here are some examples of diseases of protozoan. First is the Chagas disease. Chagas disease is an infection caused by a protozoan parasite that can result in acute inflammatory skin changes and may eventually cause infection and inflammation of many other body tissues, especially those of the heart and intestinal tract. It is spread mostly by insects known as kissing bugs. Second example is the human African trypanosemiasis, also known as African sleeping sickness. It is called African sleeping sickness because symptoms can include a disturbed sleep pattern. Human African trypanosomiasis is an insect-borne parasitic disease of human and other animals. Fever, severe headaches, irritability, humans and other animals. fever, severe headaches, irritability, extreme fatigue, swollen lymph nodes, and aching muscles and joints are common symptoms. The third example is the Cyclospora cayetanensis. It is a parasite that causes diarrheal disease in humans and perhaps in other primates. Its symptoms include watery diarrhea, loss of appetite, weight loss, cramping, bloated, fatigue, and increased gas. Giardia. It is colonized and reproduced in small intestine of several vertebrates, causing giardiasis. Its symptoms include fatigue, diarrhea, loss of appetite, vomiting, bloating, and weight loss. Last but not the least, the Cryptosporidium parvum. Cryptosporidium parvum is one of the several species that cause cryptosporidiosis, a parasitic disease of the mammalian intestinal tract. Once inside your body, the parasite passes through your digestive tract and infects your stool. Anything contaminated with the infected stool can pass the infection on to other people. That, that's all for Protozoan. Thank you. Fungi. What about fungi? They're far more fun than one may realize. Overdone? Perhaps. Fungi, like protists, are also eukaryotes. Most fungi have cell walls made of carbohydrates called chitin. You can also find chitin as part of the exoskeleton of insect. Kind of cool. So if you were looking for fungi, where would you look? Many people automatically think of areas that are dark in moisture, which sure you can find fungi there. But you can actually find fungi in all kinds of places, in the soil, in your house, in aquatic environments, on you. When you see fungi, they might remind you of something like a plant. But if considering molecular genetics, fungi are actually more related to animals than they are plants. Fungi don't require light for photosynthesis like plants do because fungi don't do photosynthesis. Unlike the classification of protists, which are we mentioned can include autotrophs, fungi are heterotrophs and therefore consume organic matter. Unlike the classification of protists, which as we mentioned can include autotrophs, fungi are heterotrophs and therefore consume organic matter. Most fungi are multicellular, but there are unicellular fungi too. Many types of fungi can do both sexual and asexual reproduction. Both of these forms of reproduction often involve the use of spores. Think may smaller than plant seeds, and this can be spread far away from the parent fungus by wind or by animals or another method. Like the protists, fungi reproduction can be very complex and we need another video to cover it. When people think of fungi, they often think of something gross or not good. Now, it is true that fungi can be problematic. For example, yeast infections, ringworm, thrush, athlete's foot, they are all examples of fungal infections that can affect humans. Fungi can also be parasites of many organisms, like the nematode. Although many species of nematodes are also parasitic too, so sometimes it's a parasite or a parasite. Fungi can also attack plants and therefore cause destruction to crops. But fungi do a lot of good. They are excellent decomposer, which is very important for ecosystems. Many types of fungi make up food sources for another organism. Many fungi are involved in some of the food humans eat, like producing some type of cheese or helping bread rise by using yeast. Yeast is a fungus, or mushrooms. Mushrooms themselves are fungus. Many types of fungi have symbiotic mutual relationship with other organisms. For example, fungi can help increase the surface area of plant roots for so many species of plants and help the plant access more water and minerals. In return, the fungus gets some product of the plant's photosynthesis. Or there is lichen, which is a symbiotic relationship of fungus and typically an algae. We mentioned lichen in our ecological success video where you can see its role as a pioneer and species. And lichen is also a food and habitat source of organisms. In medicine, we should mention that many antibiotics are derived from fungus. In fact, the first antibiotic, the penicillin, was accidentally discovered from a mold, a fungus. So overall, fungi and protists continue to fascinate us, and scientists still learn more about them all the time. Did you know that there has been research on the potential use of phytoplankton as a source of biofuel, or that some types of fungi are used as a biocontrol agents against pest insects as an alternative to chemical pesticides, or that yeast have roles in biotechnology like recombinant DNA technology? Slime molds. What is a slime mold? A bright yellow slimy blob is commonly seen in the summer on mulch flower beds. It is not pretty unless you like yellow, and it soon gets uglier. The yellow blob turns gray, becomes hard, then breaks down into a brown powder. People complain that the yellow blob looks like a dog vomit and that the brown powder stains sidewalk. The blob is a slime mold called Fusarium polycephalum. The brown powder is made up of millions of spores it makes in order to reproduce. Other slime molds are tiny and difficult to find. Their spore-producing structures are not an ugly crust like Fusarium, but rather beautiful colored spheres or popsicle shape. Defining fungi and slime. Slime molds may be slimy, but they are not molds. Molds are fungi. A century ago, fungi were defined by what they did not have or did not do. Here are some examples. They did not move like animals. They did not have the green pigments chlorophyll, which meant they were not plants. They were not as small as bacteria. Today, organisms in the kingdom fungi are defined by having chitin in their cell walls. The hard shells of insects are also made of chitin, not being able to move during any stage of their life cycle, lacking chlorophyll, and being larger than bacteria. Slime molds move and lack chitin in their cell walls. They are now classified as belonging to the kingdom Protista. Mycologists have studied them for so long that slime molds are still included in mycology textbooks. Fusarium polycephalum is a plasmodial slime mold. The yellow blob we notice is a huge single cell. The plasmodium may be ugly to some, but it is not harmful. Slime molds cause very little damage. The plasmodium ingests bacteria, fungal spores, and maybe other smaller protozoa. Their ingestion of food is one reason slime molds are not considered to be fungi. Fungi produce enzymes that break down organic matter into chemicals that are absorbed through their cell walls, not ingested. One fascinating thing about plasmodial slime molds is that the millions of nucleus in a single plasmodium all divided at the same time. This makes slime molds ideal tools for scientists studying mitosis, the process of nuclear division. If the plasmodium is not stressed by its environment, it will produce a stock reproductive structure that looks like a spear or is popsicle shaped. These structures contains the spores. The spores are usually spickled with a thick wall that may be smooth or ornamented with pits, spine, or warts. Spores are extremely resistant to unfavorable growing conditions. Some spores can stay dormant for 75 years and then germinate. If the plasmodium begins to dry out too quickly or is starved, it forms a survival structure called a sclerotium. This hard-walled mass protects the dormant cell inside until better conditions for growth return. The cell-like structures, which contain nucleus, can grow into a new plasmodia when moisture and temperature conditions improve. Cellular slime molds, the second major group of slime molds, exist as minute slugs during their growth phase. Each slug contains a single nucleus. The slugs crawl through dung, soil, rotting mushroom, decaying leaves, and other organic material at an average speed of 1 millimeter per hour. When conditions are right, all the slugs in an area join together to create a pseudoplasmodium, or a fake plasmodium. Scientists once thought that the signal that caused the slugs to aggregate was issued by a few leader slugs. Recent search, recent search has, has shown that there are no leaders. Each slug pumps out a chemical that leaves an invisible trail. When other slugs cross the path of this trail, they follow it, straightening the chemical trail by adding to it. Even more slugs are attracted by the stronger concentration of the chemical. Eventually, all of the slugs in an area gather themselves in a pseudoplasmodium. Then, as part of preparing to reproduce, they stop eating. The plasmodium is fake because each slug in it remains an individual even though they become glued together into a larger mass. As a single mass, they act together to produce a single stalk spore-producing structure. About a third of the slug in the pseudoplasmodium become the stalk. The other slugs are formed into spores. The spores wall are smooth and contain cellulose, which is found in the cell walls of plants, but not fungi. Lichen. Have you ever heard of lichen? It doesn't get the same attention that bigger, more exciting living things get, like elephants, or sharks, or giant redwood trees. But it's one of the coolest things that you're likely to find on your next walk in the woods, or even in your own backyard. Lichen is a tiny living thing or organism that grows outdoors, attaching itself most of the time to rocks, trees, and soil. This small but colorful organism really like moist areas, which is why you can find it where water runs down rocks, on the bark of damp trees, and on the wet ground. But here's a surprise lichen. Lichen is actually two different organisms that live together to help each other out. It's actually both a fungus and an algae. You may have seen fungus on the bottom of your old bread at the bottom of the bag. Gross, I know, sorry. But that fuzzy green mold is a kind of fungus, and mushrooms are part of fungus too. As for algae, you might seen that on the side of your fish tank or wherever there's still water, like a pond. In lichen, fungus and algae work together in a relationship called symbiosis. A symbiotic relationship is where two organisms help each other survive, with each of them getting something out of the relationship. Both the fungus and the algae bring special skills to this party. The fungus is bigger and has a stronger body than algae, so it gives the lichen its shape. But the algae has another rule. The algae bring home the bacon, by which I mean it makes food, not bacon. Like many other plants, algae can make food from sunlight. It uses a process called photosynthesis to capture energy from the sun to make sugars that is used for energy. Since the fungus can do this on its own, it pairs up with the algae to help get a steady supply of food. And while algae can survive on its own, wherever there's water and light, pairing up with the fungus allow it to grow in all kinds of different landscapes, like moist, sandy places, wooded forests, and rocks. Once you learn how to spot it, it can be pretty easy to find in all sorts of places. It can be blue, green or red, or yellow, or even orange. The color of lichen depends on what type of fungus and algae are working together. But there are three main types to look for. The first kind is leafy like lettuce, but don't eat it. The second kind can grow to look like a little teacups, or the wispy strand of an old man's beard. You may have seen this type swaying in the wind on tree branches. And the last type is called crust lichen. It's colorful and flat. You can find them on rocks, and it makes the rock look like they have spots. Whatever the shape and color, lichen is a very diverse and it's also very delicate. It grows extremely slowly, so if you happen to see some of while you're in a hike, try not to step on it. While it may be small, lichen is an important part of nature because it provides a home for little critters like spiders and small insects. And here's a fun fact. Lichen usually grow where the air is fresh and clean, which is why you can find them out in natural areas like in forests and around lakes, but not necessarily near highways or in the city. So if you're out on a walk with your friend or family and you see a little sprig of lichen on a tree or a rock, take a deep breath of fresh air. Thank you, that's all.